the woman who made him feel safe without asking. There are some women who never have to ask for loyalty, effort, or honesty, because their presence alone pulls it out of a man. Not through pressure, not through fear, but through the quiet safety she brings into his life. She doesn't demand trust, she inspires it. She doesn't chase reassurance, she becomes the reassurance. And today, we're talking about that woman, the woman who makes him feel safe, without forcing connection, without begging for attention, and without changing herself to be loved. She is the kind of woman who carries a peace that feels like home, not noise. A woman whose energy softens his defenses the moment she enters the room. This is the woman he doesn't want to lose, the woman he opens up to without even realizing it, the woman who teaches him that safety isn't something you ask for. It's something you embody. Let's dive into who she is, how she moves, and why the world feels different when she walks into it. The quiet power of her presence. How she led with calm energy. There is a certain kind of woman whose presence shifts the entire atmosphere the moment she steps into a room. Not because she is loud, not because she demands attention, but because she carries a calmness so rare, so steady, that it feels like peace in human form. She leads without raising her voice, without forcing her opinions, and without needing anyone to validate her worth. Her calm energy is not passive, it is powerful. It is the quiet authority that makes people feel understood, grounded, and safe. She doesn't need to perform confidence, she is confidence, soft, effortless, and deeply rooted. She is the woman who became unforgettable, not by trying to be impressive, but by being in tune with herself. And this is where her influence begins. Unlike many who move through the world in chaos, reacting to everything, absorbing every emotion around them, she is different. She chooses peace. She protects her space from unnecessary noise, unnecessary drama, and unnecessary battles. She understands that inner calm is not something you stumble into, it is something you build, piece by piece, through self-awareness and discipline. She doesn't allow the world to shake her easily, because she has done the work to stabilize her inner life. She has faced storms without collapsing, silence without breaking, and uncertainty without losing herself. Each experience added another layer to her strength, and that strength became the calmness people feel the moment she speaks. Her calm energy is not about being quiet, it's about being controlled. She doesn't overshare, she doesn't panic, she doesn't let every emotion spill out the moment it appears. But she also doesn't numb herself. Instead, she has mastered the art of responding rather than reacting. When someone raises their voice, she keeps hers steady. When someone is stressed, she becomes the grounding force. When things go wrong, she chooses clarity over panic. And this is what separates her from the rest. She is the anchor in situations where others drift. People feel safe around her because she is predictable in the best possible way. Not boring, not rigid, predictable in her emotional stability. With her, there are no sudden explosions, no emotional traps, no passive-aggressive silence. She communicates her needs calmly. She expresses her boundaries clearly. She handles conflict with maturity. She's not looking to win, she's looking to understand. This is why people naturally lean toward her. They know she won't use their vulnerability against them. They know she won't twist their words, blame them, or create unnecessary tension. Her calmness is a shelter for those who exist in a world full of emotional storms. But what many don't realize is that she wasn't born this way. Her calm energy came from battles she had to fight quietly, lessons she had to learn the hard way. She learned that chaos attracts chaos, and peace attracts peace. She learned that yelling doesn't make you heard, it makes people defensive. She learned that reacting impulsively creates more pain than clarity. She learned that true confidence is not loud, it is self-contained. She became calm because she decided that she would never again let her emotions be controlled by situations or people who don't deserve that level of influence over her. She chose peace not because life gave it to her, but because she refused to live in emotional turbulence. And her calm energy does something remarkable. It changes the men around her. Without ever asking, she becomes the woman a man feels safe with. He finds himself speaking softer around her. He finds himself thinking before reacting. He finds himself wanting to match her emotional maturity. Her energy makes him slow down in the best way. It makes him breathe. It makes him reflect. It makes him open up, not because she pressures him, not because she demands vulnerability, but because being around her makes honesty feel natural. She doesn't interrogate him. She doesn't corner him into conversations. She doesn't rush his feelings. Her calmness creates space. Space for truth, space for depth, space for connection. This is the secret many overlook. Calmness is magnetic. People crave what they lack. In a world of overstimulation, oversharing, overreacting, and overwhelming emotions, calm energy is rare. It is refreshing, it is healing, and that is why she stands out effortlessly. She doesn't compete. She doesn't compare. She doesn't try to be the loudest presence in the room. She becomes the most influential presence simply by being steady when others are shaking. Her calmness is not silence. It is strength wrapped in softness. It is emotional intelligence expressed through grace. It is self-respect disguised as peace. She understands that the most powerful energy a woman can carry is the energy that says, I am in control of myself, no matter what surrounds me. She leads with calm energy because she refuses to let the world take that away from her. And because of that, people trust her, open up to her, and feel safe with her, without her ever having to ask. The woman who held space for vulnerability without punishing it. There is a rare kind of woman who becomes unforgettable. Not because she is perfect, not because she has all the right answers, but because she makes people feel safe enough to be real. She creates an environment where shields drop, voices soften, and truth finally has room to breathe. When she listens, people feel like their emotions are welcome, not judged. When someone opens up to her, they don't brace for criticism or mockery, they feel understood in a way they didn't even know they needed. She isn't the kind of woman who demands vulnerability, but she knows how to hold it when it arrives. She doesn't weaponize emotions, doesn't use someone's honesty as ammunition, and doesn't cling to their flaws as evidence against them. Instead, she holds space, gentle, open, steady. And that space becomes the reason people trust her in ways they never trusted anyone else. Her ability to welcome vulnerability, without punishing it, comes from a deep understanding of human fragility. She knows that most people carry hidden wounds. Childhood fears, insecurities they never expressed, memories they don't talk about, pressures they pretend not to feel. She understands that vulnerability is not weakness, it's courage in its rawest form. She honors that courage every time someone shares something real with her. She listens not just to the words being spoken, but to the silence between them. She pays attention to the tone, the hesitations, the things left unsaid. Her empathy is not dramatic, it's intentional. It's quiet but powerful. The kind of empathy that makes people say, I don't know why, but I can talk to you. What makes her different is that she never turns someone's vulnerability into a performance. She doesn't rush to comfort them in a way that makes their pain about her. She doesn't interrupt with her own stories, her own opinions, or her own emotional agenda. She allows them to feel what they feel. She honors the moment without trying to fix it. This is what so many miss. People don't always want solutions. They want safety. They want to know that the truth they are revealing won't be turned against them later. She provides that certainty without needing to say it. Her energy communicates, you're safe here. And that one feeling can transform a person more than any advice ever could. Most people listen to reply. She listens to understand. She has no interest in winning arguments, one-upping stories, or proving emotional superiority. She listens because she cares about the inner world behind the words. She listens because she sees the person, not just the problem. And because of this, people naturally open up around her, men, women, friends, strangers. It isn't something she tries to do, it's something she is. Genuine, present, emotionally available without losing herself. Her presence diffuses defensiveness. Even the most guarded individuals find themselves sharing things they swore they'd keep hidden. Why? Because she never makes them regret being honest. She doesn't throw their admissions back in their face during conflict. She doesn't use their insecurities as leverage. She doesn't store their past mistakes as weapons for future arguments. She treats vulnerability as sacred, not something to be exploited. And this is the reason people feel seen by her, not exposed. She knows that vulnerability is rare because trust is rare. And trust is rare because so many have been punished for being open. She becomes the exception. Her warmth melts the coldness people didn't realize they were carrying. Her acceptance softens the harshness they hide behind. She becomes the place where they can lay down their armor without fear of attack. With her, they don't have to perform confidence or pretend strength. They can be flawed, emotional, uncertain, and still feel valued. The beauty of her gift is that she does not lose herself in others' vulnerability. She doesn't absorb their pain and break under it. She doesn't become a savior or fall into emotional overload. She maintains her boundaries with grace. She understands that supporting someone doesn't mean sacrificing herself. She can be compassionate without becoming overwhelmed. She can be present without disappearing into their struggles. This balance is what makes her emotionally safe, not codependent. And the truth is, her ability to hold space came from her own journey. She knows what it feels like to be misunderstood, dismissed, or shut down. She remembers times when she wished someone would just listen without judging. She learned how much it hurts when vulnerability is punished, so she made a promise, never to be the reason someone closes their heart, never to be the source of emotional fear, never to let her ego win over someone's courage. Her own pain taught her how valuable emotional safety truly is. Because of this, she becomes the woman a man feels safe with in a way he doesn't feel with anyone else. Her presence invites honesty. Her silence invites depth. Her acceptance invites truth. He doesn't feel the need to act tough, pretend he isn't hurting, or hide the parts of himself he thinks are unlovable. Around her, he feels like he can breathe, like he can exist without pretending. She becomes the emotional sanctuary he didn't know he needed, soft, steady, and rare. Her strength isn't in how loudly she loves, but in how deeply she understands. Her power isn't in her words, but in the safety those words create. She doesn't demand openness, she inspires it. She doesn't ask for trust, she earns it. She doesn't force vulnerability, she welcomes it. And that, more than anything else, makes her unforgettable. She becomes the woman whose presence heals, not hurts. The woman who listens without ego. The woman who holds space without judgment. The woman who turns vulnerability into connection, not conflict. And she had standards, not walls. The strength that made her safe to love. There is a woman who moves through the world with a rare balance, soft enough to connect, but strong enough to protect her peace. She is kind, open-hearted, and emotionally warm, but she is not a woman who lets just anyone into her life. She doesn't hide behind emotional walls or push people away out of fear. Instead, she sets standards, clear, grounded, and unwavering. And because she lives by her standards, not her fears, she becomes the kind of woman others feel safe around. She is stable, consistent, and intentional. She doesn't expect perfection, but she does expect respect. She doesn't demand loyalty, but her energy inspires it. She doesn't build walls to keep people out. She builds boundaries that teach people how to treat her. And that is why her presence feels safe, not suffocating, free, but not reckless. Her standards aren't designed to intimidate, they're designed to protect her emotional well-being. She learned a long time ago that allowing everything and everyone into her space only leads to inner chaos. She discovered that it is better to stand alone than to entertain someone who disrupts her peace. So she created standards that honor her self-worth. She doesn't tolerate disrespect disguised as humor. She doesn't allow inconsistent behavior to become normal. She doesn't entertain people who only show up when they need something. She has grown past the need to impress, convince, or cling. Instead, she allows people to reveal who they are, and she responds accordingly. If someone treats her well, she reciprocates with warmth. If someone disrespects her boundaries, she quietly steps back. She doesn't argue for basic decency. She doesn't negotiate with chaos. She simply chooses peace. And she chooses herself. What makes her standards so beautiful is that they don't come from arrogance, they come from clarity. She knows what she wants, what she needs, and what she will no longer accept. She has been through enough to understand that lowering her standards never leads to love. It only leads to pain. She realized that emotional safety cannot exist in relationships where boundaries are absent or ignored, so she became intentional about the connections she allows. She stopped saying yes out of guilt. She stopped entertaining energy that drains her. She stopped hoping people would change. Now she listens more to actions than promises, to patterns more than apologies, to consistency more than charm. Her standards are not rigid rules, they are reflections of her growth. And here's what makes her unforgettable: her standards don't push people away. They attract the right ones closer. People feel safe around her because they know exactly where they stand. There is no emotional confusion, no mixed signals, no unpredictable reactions. She communicates clearly and directly. If something bothers her, she won't suppress it or explode, she will calmly express it. If she needs time alone, she says it without guilt. If she wants connection, she says it without fear. Her emotional transparency eliminates the guessing games that exhaust people in other relationships. With her, there is honesty, not manipulation. There is openness, not pressure. There is balance, not chaos. A man feels safe with her because he knows she won't punish him for being human. She doesn't expect perfection, but she expects effort. She doesn't expect constant closeness, but she expects consistency. Her standards don't demand that he changes who he is. They simply require that he shows up with integrity. He feels safe because her boundaries are built from self-respect, not fear. She knows how to walk away if she needs to, and that makes her presence even more powerful. She chooses to stay, not because she's afraid to be alone, but because she genuinely wants to be there. And that difference makes every connection with her deeper and more meaningful. Her standards make her trustworthy. She does not say yes when she means no. She does not pretend to be okay when she's hurting. She does not hold in resentment until it blows up. She communicates. She expresses. She addresses issues before they become wounds. And because she does this, her relationships become safe spaces where problems don't grow unchecked. Her emotional maturity sets the tone, and people naturally rise to it. Her standards become an invitation for others to be better, not out of fear of losing her, but out of respect for the environment she creates. Her journey to setting standards wasn't easy. There were times she allowed too much, tolerated too long, gave too deeply. She learned through heartbreak that loving without boundaries leads to self-destruction. She learned through disappointment that not everyone values what you give. She learned through silence that sometimes peace is more important than potential. And through all of this, she grew into a woman who knows exactly what she deserves. Her standards are not a result of bitterness. They are the result of healing. They are not weapons. They are shields. They don't keep love out. They keep harm out. Her standards also make her irresistibly feminine in the most grounded way. She is not trying to control. She is not trying to dominate. She is not trying to test anyone. She simply values herself too much to accept less than respect, honesty, and effort. Her softness remains intact because her boundaries protect it. She can be gentle because she is not afraid. She can be vulnerable because she knows she can walk away. She can love deeply because she doesn't lose herself in the process. And that balance, between softness and strength, creates an emotional safety that few can match. In a world full of people who either shut down emotionally or give themselves away without limits, she stands as a rare middle ground. She is open but selective, warm but discerning, loving but not desperate, present but not suffocating. She is the woman who teaches others, simply by living authentically, that standards are not walls, they are invitations. Invitations to deeper love, healthier connection, and mutual respect. And because of that, she becomes the woman people feel safe loving, safe trusting, and safe committing to. She becomes the woman who inspires emotional growth without ever forcing it. The woman whose presence feels like clarity, not confusion. She listened to understand, not to reply, not to win, but to truly see him. There are countless people who hear words, but only a few who truly listen. And then there is a woman who listens on a level that makes others feel deeply understood. Sometimes for the first time in their lives. She doesn't listen with impatience, waiting for her turn to speak. She doesn't rehearse her reply while you're still talking. She doesn't interrupt to correct, criticize, or prove a point. She listens with her whole presence, with her eyes, with her silence, with her empathy, and most importantly, with an intention to understand, not to win. When she listens, people feel their emotions being held, not analyzed. They feel their experiences being validated, not dismissed. They feel seen, not judged. This kind of listening becomes a safe haven for those who are used to being misunderstood, ignored, or talked over. And that is why she becomes the woman he opens up to without fear, because she knows how to listen without ego. Her listening is not passive, it is active, intentional, and deeply emotional. She pays attention not just to the words being said, but to the feelings behind them. She notices the subtle changes in tone, the hesitation before certain sentences, the sighs that reveal what someone is too tired to say. She hears the pain hidden in jokes, the fear masked by anger, the longing hidden beneath silence. She listens as if she is reading a heart, not just hearing a voice. And this level of presence disarms people. It makes them feel safe enough to be honest. In her company, people don't feel the need to exaggerate, hide, or pretend. Her ears create the kind of freedom most never experience. She doesn't weaponize what she hears. She never stores someone's honesty to use it against them later. She doesn't twist their words or take their vulnerability out of context. She doesn't turn emotional moments into emotional ammunition. Her listening is clean, respectful, and gentle. When someone trusts her with their truth, she protects it, honors it, and carries it with care. People can sense this, even subconsciously. And that is why they trust her. They know she will not break what they hand her. She listens like someone who understands that vulnerability is sacred. What sets her apart is her silence, the kind that isn't empty, but full of intention, full of compassion. She is not afraid of pauses in conversations. She knows that silence often invites depth, allowing hidden thoughts to surface. She gives people space to process their emotions without rushing them. She lets them express themselves at their own pace, instead of pressuring them to speak faster or be clearer. This patience is rare. In a world that constantly interrupts, she gives the gift of stillness, and this stillness feels like emotional safety. She also listens without inserting her ego. She doesn't turn conversations into competition. She doesn't try to show she knows more. She doesn't hijack the moment to make it about herself. She is comfortable enough in her identity that she doesn't need to dominate conversations to feel important. Instead, she makes others feel important. She knows that people don't open their hearts to those who make them feel small, so she gives them room to step into their truth without fear. Her listening is also emotionally intelligent. She knows when someone needs advice and when they simply need presence. She knows when to ask questions and when to stay quiet. She knows when to comfort and when to let someone release their emotions without interference. She doesn't assume, she observes. She doesn't push, she guides gently. And because her intuition is strong, her responses are always grounded in understanding rather than assumption. A man feels uniquely safe with her because she never makes him feel wrong for feeling deeply. She understands that men, too, desire to share their fears, their doubts, their dreams, and their wounds, if they feel safe, and she gives that safety without demanding anything in return. She doesn't judge him for being emotional. She doesn't laugh when he opens up. She doesn't label him as weak for being vulnerable. Instead, she creates an atmosphere where he can express himself fully, without censoring his heart. He feels respected, not ridiculed. He feels valued, not dismissed. And that is why he returns to her with more truth each time. They build trust one honest moment at a time. Her listening also strengthens her relationships in ways others can't replicate. Conflicts don't explode with her because she approaches them with curiosity, not defensiveness. She asks, "What made you feel that way?" instead of, "Why would you say that?" She seeks clarity before reacting. She wants to understand the intention behind the words, not just the words themselves. And because she listens deeply, misunderstandings dissolve instead of growing. Arguments become conversations. Disagreements become lessons. Emotions become bridges instead of walls. But this ability didn't come out of nowhere. She became this kind of listener through her own experiences. Moments when she felt unheard, unseen, or misunderstood by people who didn't know how to hold space for her. She learned how painful it is when someone talks over your emotions, dismisses your truth, or silences your voice. She promised herself she would never make anyone feel that way. Her listening is her gift, and it comes from a place of healed wounds. Her strength lies in the softness of her presence. Her power lies in her ability to understand before she speaks. Her value lies in her emotional intelligence. And because of this, she becomes unforgettable. She is the kind of woman whose silence feels safer than most people's advice. The kind of woman whose attention feels like a warm embrace. The kind of woman whose understanding can melt years of emotional tension. She listens not to reply, not to control, not to fix, but to connect. And that is why she becomes the woman he trusts, the one he confides in, the one he feels seen by. She listens in a way that makes people feel like their truth matters. She listens in a way that heals. She listens in a way that turns conversations into connection. And that is the kind of listening that changes hearts, deepens relationships, and makes her impossible to forget. She made people feel chosen, not trapped. The freedom that deepened his desire to stay. There is a woman whose presence feels like an invitation, not an obligation. Someone who makes others feel chosen rather than controlled, valued rather than possessed. She is the woman who never traps anyone with expectations, pressure, or emotional demands, yet somehow inspires the kind of devotion that most people spend their lives chasing. She doesn't cling, she doesn't beg, she doesn't chase, she allows connection to breathe. And because she gives freedom instead of fear, people naturally choose her. This is the woman who makes him feel safe in the most powerful way, not by tightening her grip, but by opening her hand and letting him stay because he wants to, not because he has to. And that difference is everything. She understands something most never learn, that love dies when it becomes a cage, but it thrives when it is offered with openness. She doesn't overwhelm others with constant demands for reassurance or attention. She doesn't suffocate relationships with fear-based behavior. She doesn't keep score or guilt trip people into staying close. Instead, she trusts that what is meant for her will remain, not out of force, but out of alignment. Her confidence in herself, and in the natural flow of relationships, is what makes her presence so rare. She is the type of woman who values emotional freedom because she knows that genuine connection can only exist where choice exists. And she wants to be chosen, not resented. People feel safe with her because she never turns closeness into control. She doesn't need to monitor every move, question every silence, or demand constant proof of love. She gives space without taking distance personally. She understands that humans need breathing room, not because they are pulling away, but because they are individuals with their own inner worlds. Her emotional maturity teaches others that love doesn't have to be tight or tense. It can be spacious, calm, and unforced. And ironically, this freedom makes people gravitate toward her even more. She becomes the place they want to return to, not the place they want to escape. A man feels deeply drawn to her because she never tries to own him. She doesn't pressure him to be someone he's not. She doesn't mold him, fix him, or smother him. She allows him to exist fully as himself, and that acceptance becomes addictive. Her presence makes him feel like every part of him. His strengths, his flaws, his silence, his emotions, is allowed. With her, he doesn't feel like he's losing himself. He feels like he's discovering himself. She makes him feel safe because she never tries to shrink him to fit her expectations. Instead, she expands to understand him. She supports his individuality instead of seeing it as a threat. But make no mistake, giving freedom does not mean she accepts disrespect. She has boundaries. She has self-respect. She knows how to walk away if someone takes advantage of her openness. Her freedom is not passivity, it's strength. It comes from knowing she doesn't need to cling to anyone to feel whole. She is already complete within herself, and that completeness is what makes her captivating. People don't feel trapped with her. They feel trusted. And when someone feels trusted, they naturally want to protect that trust. What makes her unforgettable is that she loves without losing herself. She doesn't confuse attachment with purpose. She doesn't make another person the center of her universe. She has her own life, her own goals, her own joy. She doesn't sit around waiting for someone to fill the empty spaces in her identity. She fills them herself. And because of this, she becomes a partner, not a burden, a companion, not a responsibility. Her independence is not cold, it's inspiring. She shows others that love is healthiest when both people can breathe freely in the connection. Her emotional freedom removes pressure from the relationship. He doesn't feel like he's constantly being tested, judged, or measured. He doesn't feel like he's walking on eggshells. He doesn't feel like loving her is a job. Instead, loving her feels effortless, balanced, and natural. She doesn't create drama to feel important. She doesn't pick fights to feel loved. She doesn't manipulate emotions to feel secure. She simply exists in her truth, and her truth is peaceful. Peace is attractive. Peace makes people stay. She knows that love cannot be forced, so she never tries. She knows that loyalty cannot be demanded, so she doesn't ask for it. She knows that closeness cannot be begged for, so she doesn't chase it. She knows that effort cannot be coerced, so she doesn't guilt anyone into giving it. She trusts authenticity. She trusts energy. She trusts that the right people will meet her halfway without her having to drag them. And that trust creates a relationship where both people feel equal, respected, and free. What others don't realize is that her ability to give freedom came from experience. She has seen what happens when love becomes possession. She has lived through relationships where she felt suffocated or suffocating. She has felt the weight of expectations that crushed the joy out of connection. She has learned that you cannot control someone into staying, you can only inspire them to. And so she chose a different path. She became the woman who loves with open hands and an open heart, knowing that real love chooses you without pressure. And because of that, she becomes the woman he values more than he ever expected. A woman he doesn't want to lose. A woman he keeps coming back to. A woman he chooses, not out of fear, not out of habit, but out of genuine appreciation for the peace she brings. She becomes the woman who makes him feel safe, not because she locks him in, but because she gives him room to breathe. She becomes unforgettable because she makes him feel both free and deeply connected. And that rare combination is what makes her the woman he stays for, not because he is trapped, but because he finally feels at home.